Welcome everybody to the PMO's Game Winning Score, how to prioritize projects when everything is important. My name is Isel, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Raphael and Courtney that will be presenting this webinar. Raphael, Courtney, thanks so much for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Excel. So my name is Courtney Carroll. Hello, everyone. I'm an account executive here at Planisware. So I've been working in SaaS and project management for over 7 years. So partnering with organizations like yourself to help streamline your project portfolio processes. So my role goes beyond just selling software. I focus on building strong relationships and supporting long-term customer success. So I work closely with clients like yourself to understand your goals, guide them through your implementation, ensure you're getting the real value from the platform. And I'll pass it over to Raphael.
Thank you, Courtney. Hello, everyone. My name is Raphael. I am a solution engineer at Planisware. And my role is to work alongside Courtney to help organizations by understanding their processes, their needs, and their pain points, seeing how we can translate that into solutions. And today I will be also guiding you through a live demonstration. So looking forward to it. And hello and welcome, everyone.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and dive right in, taking a look at the agenda here. Here's a quick look at what we'll be covering today. So we're going to start by unpacking project prioritization. So what it is, why it's so critical, and how teams can get it right. Then we'll jump into a live demo with Raphael, where we'll show you how to move from chaos to control and how to evaluate new priorities as they come in. And then we'll wrap up with a quick conclusion, and we'll leave some time at the end, about 15 minutes for that Q&A. So we want this to be a dynamic conversation. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll answer them as we go through. But we have some Q&A time at the end. So go ahead, we're kicking it off here. Let's start with why project prioritization matters. Because it's not just strategic, it's tactical. It's the difference between delivering value and just delivering work. So you see that 75% stat on the screen. This stat is hard to ignore. 75% of projects are misaligned with strategy. That means most organizations are investing in work that doesn't support their goals. And misaligned projects don't just waste resources, they can actively hurt delivery by pulling focus and energy away from what really matters. So even with the right framework, if it's not tied to the right objectives, it's not going to be impactful. You'll be executing well, but on the wrong things. And so that's why we love this quote here. It's often better to execute the right project poorly than the wrong project perfectly. It's a reminder that alignment beats perfection. So today, we'll look at how to make prioritization a tactical advantage, one that ensures every project is a step towards strategic impact.
So to get things started, we put a quick poll for you guys in the poll section because we wanted to know how confident are you in your current project prioritization process. So we leave 30 seconds to 1 minute for you to answer the poll and let us know how you guys are doing on that topic. We see somewhat confident, not confident.
Okay. A little bit of everything.
Yeah, mostly somewhat confident.
Yeah.
All right, so back to you, Courtney. With the customers you talk to, what are the biggest reasons you see projects getting misaligned in businesses?
Yeah, great question. So obviously there's many reasons, but these three right here are the ones that we see most often in organizations. So first and foremost, unclear business strategy. If your strategic goals aren't clearly defined or communicated, it's nearly impossible to align projects to them. So ROI suffers because you're measuring success against the wrong outcomes, or worse, no outcomes at all. And when priorities shift frequently, teams struggle to keep up, leading to project failure. The next one we see here, that insufficient stakeholder involvement. So organizational silos. When teams operate in isolation, visibility breaks down. You might not know who's involved, what's being worked on, or whether projects overlap or conflict. This lack of visibility makes it hard to assess scope and value across the portfolio. And finally, we see weak governance, so missing decision makers. Even with great reporting and dashboards, if the right people aren't at the table, decisions aren't going to be effective. Often this stems from weak governance, so no clear success metrics, no validation frameworks, and no structured decision-making processes. So you might have all the right data, but without the right tools and the right people, it's all just noise.
With that being said, how can an organization get from those current pain points to a better prioritization process?
Yeah, great question. So what we've seen in our conversations is that teams who really get it right aren't just making better prioritization decisions. They're building a system that makes those decisions repeatable, scalable, and aligned with strategy. So the ones who struggle tend to rely on gut feel, disconnected tools, or that ad hoc scoring. But the high performers, they've moved from chaos to control by following a few key practices. So communicating strategy clearly, involving the right stakeholders, and using structured scoring models. And when they layer in automation and integration, they start to unlock real visibility. So not just for the PMO or the marketing leads, but for execs who want to understand what's in flight and why. The final piece is continuous improvement. Priorities shift, teams evolve, and the systems need to be flexible with them. So that's where platforms like Planisware really shine. We're helping teams operationalize this journey and keep everyone aligned. So we've talked about how teams move from chaos to control, but what's really changing the game now is how AI is starting to support those decisions in real time. A good accelerator that we see Planisware can provide is utilizing the right tools, which is specifically AI, to get to that target situation faster. So it's not just about making better decisions, it's about making them faster and with more confidence. And this is where I'll pass it over to Raphael, because he's the one who's working directly with the tool every single day. He's seen firsthand how AI is being used inside Planisware to forecast risks, optimize resources, and help teams make smarter decisions. So I'll let him walk us through how this actually shows up in the platform.
Thank you, Courtney. Indeed, let's talk about how AI is truly changing the landscape. As you guys may already know, it's no longer just a buzzword. It's become a key accelerator for organizations aiming to reach their goals faster and with more confidence. And at Planisware, we really see AI making a real difference in several areas of decision making. And this slide highlights how some of these features work in practice for today's topic about prioritization. So on the left, you'll see duplicate detection and merging. So here, AI spots similar and overlapping proposals and suggests combining them to avoid extra work and keep things clear. In the middle, we have automated classification. As new ideas come in, AI can add smart tags based on content and key themes. This keeps everything organized and speed up the review process. And on the right, impact and risk forecasting comes into play. So it's when a new project is added, especially when it's a top priority, AI quickly checks how it might affect schedules, team workload, capacity, etc. And even anticipate risks that could come up if the project overlaps with others, so you can start to anticipate and act early. And these features, we see them as now essential for organizations that want to move from reacting to proactive choices. So with Planisware, some of these AI tools are built in, making it easier to use the insights right away within our solutions. So of course, as a side note, AI supports, not replaces human judgment. And there are many other use cases we haven't covered here. So if you'd like to learn more, we have published a white paper on mastering project prioritization that we'd be happy to share. So just let us know in the chat and we'll make sure this will get to you. So in the demo that we're going to see, some of these features will come together in the live portfolio view. But before we get into that, let me set a quick context. So we'll be working with a fictional organization, the Planisware Credit Union Bank, and at PCUB, which is a mid-sized financial institution with about 400 employees. Over the past years, they've invested a lot in modernizing their project management to better support business goals and compliance needs. So like many organizations, PCUB faces two main challenges. One is handling a steady stream of new ideas and projects, and two is responding quickly when top-down priorities changes, especially when they're driven by compliance or audit requirements, such as that they can have such as a bank. So today's demo will show you two examples of how PCUB uses our solution to address the challenges. And let's start with the first one, which will be see how a demand manager at PCUB brings order in the intake process by sorting, evaluating, and ranking new ideas using team input and AI support. So let's get started with the solution, and I'll take the screen sharing from here. And let's go to Planisware. So as mentioned, for our first use case, we're stepping into the shoes of a demand manager. preparing for the next roadmap. So the challenge here is how do we turn a flood of new ideas into a clear, actionable list, and let's see how we can get from chaos to control. So first thing first, we need visibility. Here, what you see is a typical example of a campaign dashboard that could give us a single view of all the new requests. Think of it as your main queues where every idea lands before they get reviewed. So Planisware ensure each of the ideas has the right details, such as the titles, descriptions, business units, estimates, you name it. And we can also track which campaigns are open and closed to have a better sense of the history and keep track of the history of all these campaigns. So let's look at our modernizing core infrastructure campaign and see what a dashboard look like for these new ideas over this topic. Here, dashboard will help see directly which top ideas are already identified, and we can already start to have key metrics that are applied to these ideas, such as metrics of the scoring, the priorities, and the statuses. And this is where the decision can start to take shape. Right here, I see my top 5 ideas, which one have the highest priority, or maybe the ones that needs to be approved soon for my next steering committee. So here, as a demand manager, I can start to quickly have a better sense of what stand out and what's need more reviews. And as you may have noticed, each of the ideas have a global score, and this score can be tied to strategic objective that your organization may have. So for example, we can tie this scoring to 3 main objectives that we see on the top here, for example, or they can also be tied to more operational or team objectives, such as organizational or risk objective that you may undergo by pursuing these ideas. So here with this dashboard, we start to have a better visibility. That's one thing. Now, what do we do when the number of ideas grow a lot? This is where Oscar or AI assistant can come into play. What Oscar can do is start to scan for similar ideas or overlapping ideas and suggest merging them to avoid some of the extra work. So let's see how that comes into play. We can ask Oscar either from already preset prompt to check for redundant ideas. We can give it a little time. We can also ask what would be the benefits of consolidation, right? And Oscar can start to tell us, okay, that would be a good idea to merge, or maybe a bad idea to consolidate these ideas for reason X, Y, Z. But you don't have to use AI in the form of a bot or a chatbot or assistant. It can also be something that is visible throughout the different list views that you have within Planisware. For example, here, I can select these ideas that have not been tagged already and use our magic wand to start to auto tag and smart tag this new idea. So for example, I can use AI to say that, okay, my project one view is about adding new features to our products, and the carbon track analyzer is going to be about analytics. That is just here to help us as a demand manager to have a better sorting and have smarter lists faster, again, to help the review that we're going to have over these new ideas. All right, so ranking isn't just top-down. At PCUB, what we like to do is also to let teams vote on ideas so everyone is heard. You may have noticed that for each of these ideas, we also have voting capability, and we can see who has voted on which ideas. So we can see the number of votes and the statuses of these new ideas. That can be very helpful whether we have operation, cross-functional teams, or key sponsors. Everyone can get a say, and as a demand manager, that will help me see which demand surface in priority, maybe one that has been already backed up by a key sponsor, and I know that I will have support from the start for these new ideas before they even get to a steering committee approval. Finally, once we have a better and clearer vision of which ideas have the most core and which one has been solicited by the teams, we can start to filter down and say, okay, see which ones are going to be approved and prepare for our next review meeting. Now, with our top ideas identified in the committee approval, it will be time to validate. And this is where the workflow engine and the governance comes into play. When you have several ideas that you can select from the sign-off, and say, okay, from this stage, I want to make sure that I want to maybe create a project, a new task, or maybe having a further due diligence if necessary for these ideas. And that can be communicated to all necessary stakeholders at this stage. So by the end, we have a clear prioritized roadmap that is ready for action and for its next step. So this is how a demand manager at PCUB brings order to a new ideas and flow of ideas. And with the right tools, they can bring visibility, teamwork, and ranking, by selecting the right projects, becoming not just easier for them, but also smarter. So that will conclude our first use case. We can take some time to come back on the slide before we introduce the other one. So for our second use case, we'll switch gears a little bit and we'll be more around making room for what matters and evaluating the impact when we have a new priority. We'll be more into the shoes of a portfolio manager to assess the impact of these top-down new initiatives and see how we can handle that with confidence. So again, let's go back to Planisware here and see how we can do that within the solution. So as I was saying, here in the shoes of a portfolio manager at PCUB, when we have this new top priority, here for example, it's called the Red Guard Initiative. It's a digital compliance modernization initiative, and it's non-negotiable. It has been assigned by us by the leadership. We have to undertake it. So the question is, as a portfolio manager, is how do we make room for it in confidence without disrupting the whole portfolio and the whole roadmap that we've already agreed on at the beginning of the exercise. So just like we did on the first use case, the important thing here is to start with visibility. Here we start off with a portfolio list view. We can start to have more visibility on the current and future projects, the priorities, and some key health metrics that we have over these projects. This gives us a complete view of what's active, what's planned, and without this, we'll be kind of working in the dark, right? So from here, we can use our list to start to manage what we have in the flow of a project already ongoing and the one that are coming up. And this is where Oscar can also step in again. We can use Oscar for one of our use cases to say, hey, this new Red Guard initiative has been added. What impact should I expect? So we're going to give it a little time because it can be a bit long, but if we ask Oscar to have maybe some new, tell us some new impacts over these Red Guard projects, you can tell us, okay, basically these are the possible risk, budget changes, team workload, or basically summing up all the key information or effects that this new project might have on our roadmap. So it's like having a radar for upcoming challenges before they hit. So me as a portfolio manager, I can keep that in mind to better prioritize and do my simulations afterwards. So now that we have better sense of what impact we might have, one thing that is also going to be important for us to do as a portfolio manager is to flag these Red Guard initiative as a top priority project. So here, super simple, I can say that this project is top priority, is very high. But just so you know, if we wanted to, we could also color code this new initiative to mark it across dashboards and kind of break the silos that we were mentioning at the beginning of the presentation, right? So that means if we have several teams working on different dashboards or different screens within Planisware, we can make sure that for each of these different teams, they know that this initiative is a must-do and it will appear visually so. So that will help team quickly adjust their focus in making sure we stay aligned on what's a priority for the next roadmap. So from here, we can start to simulate. Still, as a portfolio manager, we want to know what happens if we add this project to the current portfolio of selected projects. And this is where the scenario engine comes into play. So let's get into that, and we'll start with the objectives and key results. The question that we're wondering as a portfolio manager is say, okay, if we have this new initiative that's going to be in our roadmap, what impact it might have in our objectives and key results. So let's add these new initiatives to our pre-validated scenario at the beginning of the exercise, which is the scenario B, and see what result we might have from that. So here let's select these new Red Guard initiatives. And what I can notice on the right side of the screen is that here this new initiative will not help us so much in increasing our net promoter score, but it will help us a lot into decreasing our time to resolution, which makes sense since it's a more of an internal regulatory project, right? But also what it will help me do is to understand, okay, which of these projects within my roadmap will have the most impact on my objective and key results. Here, what I want to know as a portfolio manager is if this new lineup it will still support the goal that I have is going we can move forward. If not, I can start to have a better sense of which project we might descope or which project contribute less, so we might have an arbitration over that. Because at the end of the exercise, even if we reprioritize as a portfolio manager, I will be the one accountable to say, did we meet some of our objectives and target that we had, regardless of the new priorities that have been thrown at us during the whole exercise. So that's one of the analyses that we can do as a portfolio manager, which is more of a qualitative analysis. What about the quantitative one and the financials? What about the budget? Because being aligned with the objectives and the key results is one thing, but what if we overrun our bucket that has been allowed to us during the exercise? So we can also run a budget check when we get into the prioritization of financial for that matter, to see if we can absorb this new work financially. So here, this view is really to make sure that as a portfolio manager, I have a better sense of, do we need to trim this list a little bit more, or should we request more funding for this new roadmap that has just been prioritized? So what I can do from here is remember that for our scenario B in our exercise, we had $500,000 that was validated as a budget for a roadmap, but now in our scenario, since we've added this new Red Guard initiative that is going to probably undertake 200,000 for this project, we are now much more above the target of $500,000 that was allowed to us. So what I can do as a portfolio manager is set again this new project as a top priority for our roadmap. And what Planisware will tell me is say, okay, well, if you want to make sure that this bucket of $500,000 is still respected, these are the list of projects that you need to maybe descope so that we still fit the $500,000 target. So not only we will descope in priority maybe some of the projects that can be in proposal mode or that has the most cost, but also some of them that has the least priority, for example. So since I know that and I can descope these 4 projects, and now I will know that in my scenario, the final bucket, the final amount of financials will be underneath my scenario $500,000. So now, using this ranking view, I can have a better sense of what project I need to cut off. And this is where the tough decisions will be made, right? So as a portfolio manager, this is where we need to discuss with the leadership or with the project managers about the stop and go of these projects. And one thing that we didn't precise here, but if we wanted to do a similar exercise in terms of capacity management, we could also run the analysis impact with the bottleneck analysis here to see what impact it would have on the team workload, or we can also do a similar analysis with the project dates with the time shift view that we also have in Planisware. So with the review list in mind in our updated scenario, now it's time to validate. Again, similarly, this is where the governance and the workflow engine will kick in. And once this new scenario is approved, this is where the updated roadmap and its changes can be shared with the different stakeholders. So everyone knows what's in, what's out, and the reasons why. So at PCUB, this is how we will make room for what matters, meaning balancing strategy, impact, and reality, and with the right tools and insights within Planisware, even the last minute priority can be handled with confidence. As a portfolio manager, I know what I will need to scope in my roadmap to still hit my targets. And that will conclude our live demo for today. Before we get into the Q&A, I pass it over to Courtney to tell us more about some of our use cases and who we are as a company.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raphael. Great job with the demo. So now that you've seen how Planisware works in that demo in the tool, I want to share how this translates into a real-world success story with one of our customers, WSECU. So WSECU, or Washington State Employees Credit Union, is a member-owned financial institution serving hundreds of thousands of members across Washington. So, like many organizations like yourself, they were facing challenges in aligning strategic priorities across departments and making confident, data-driven decisions about which initiatives to pursue. So before Planisware, their prioritization process was largely manual, spreadsheet-driven, inconsistent across teams, and lacking transparency. Leadership didn't have a clear view of how projects aligned with strategic goals, and decisions were often made based on intuition rather than data. So with Planisware, WSCCU was able to implement a centralized scoring framework tailored to their strategic pillars, things like member impact, compliant risk, and operational efficiency. They can now run both top-down and bottom-up prioritization, simulate different portfolio scenarios, and integrate with their existing systems to pull in financial and operational data. So today, WSECU has a transparent, repeatable process for portfolio decision-making. Teams are aligned, leadership has confidence in the data, and they can pivot quickly when priorities shift. It's a great example of how the capabilities you just saw in the demo